Wars don't end with a bang. They end with a timestamp. 2,200 hours, July 27th, 1953. That's when the Korean War stopped. I was the one who received the message. Sergeant Thomas Mitchell, United States Army, 7th Infantry Division, Regimental Communications. I'd been in Korea since January 1952. 18 months operating the radios, relaying orders, calling in artillery, coordinating medevacs, listening to men die over the crackling static. I was 24 years old. From a small town in Pennsylvania. Got drafted in 1951, trained at Fort Dix, shipped to Korea. They made me a radio operator because I'd worked as a telegraph operator for the railroad before the war. Figured I knew how to handle communications equipment. They were right. I was good at it. Kept the radio net running. Maintained discipline on the channels. Made sure messages got through clearly and quickly. In combat, communications is everything. A breakdown in radio contact can get people killed. So I took it seriously. Did my job. Kept the lines open. I heard everything. Every firefight, every casualty report, every desperate call for support. The radio never stopped, day and night. Always someone calling in. Always something happening. By July 1953, we'd been fighting over the same hills for 2 years. The front had stabilized into trench warfare, like World War I, but with radios and helicopters. We'd take a hill, lose it, take it back. Men dying for ground we'd already died for. Everyone knew negotiations were happening at Panmunjom. Had been for 2 years, talking while we were fighting. Arguing over prisoners and borders and points of order while men were bleeding out in bunkers. It was absurd, the whole thing. Fighting a war that nobody wanted to win, just fighting to maintain position until the diplomats figured it out. We'd stopped believing it would ever end. The war had become normal, the only reality we knew. The idea of peace seemed impossible, abstract. Then, on July 27th, the message came through. And everything stopped, but not the dying. That kept going right up until 2,200 hours. Some men died after that, too, because momentum doesn't stop just because politicians sign papers. July 26th. Everyone knew something was happening. The word was spreading through the lines. Ceasefire coming. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe the day after. Soon. You could feel the tension. Guys who'd been fighting for months, years even, suddenly thinking they might survive, might actually go home, made everyone cautious. Nobody wanted to be the last man killed. Nobody wanted to die in a war that was ending. But we couldn't stop fighting. The Chinese were still there, still shooting, still sending patrols. We had to maintain defensive positions, had to respond to contact, just had to do it while knowing it might all be over tomorrow. I was in the regimental command post, a bunker dug into the reverse slope of Hill 200. Sandbags, timber supports, radio equipment stacked on makeshift tables. Home for the past 4 months. Captain Jensen was the communications officer. Good man, Michigan, former engineer who'd gotten called back up. He'd been monitoring the situation reports all day. Think it's really happening, Mitchell? He asked. I don't know, sir. Hope so. He nodded. Me too. God, me too. But hope was dangerous. You'd hoped before and been disappointed. The negotiations had broken down so many times. Promises of peace that turned into more fighting. Safer not to hope. Safer to assume tomorrow would be like today. Like yesterday. Like all the days before. The radio crackled. Castle 6, this is Dragon 2-3, taking fire from Hill 346, requesting artillery support. I grabbed the handset. Dragon 2-3, Castle 6, stand by. Passed it to the fire direction center. They called in the mission. 105 millimeter howitzers. Impact in 3 minutes. Just another call. Another fire mission. like thousands before. But Dragon 2-3 was Lieutenant Morrison's platoon. I knew Morrison. Good officer, 23 years old, had a fiancée back in California, talked about her constantly, showed everyone her picture. He was planning to marry her when he got home, had the whole thing figured out. Church wedding, honeymoon in San Francisco, 2 kids, maybe 3. Made the mistake of planning for a future that might not happen. The artillery hit Hill 346. The radio went quiet. Mission complete. Morrison's platoon held their position. No casualties reported. This time, night fell. The usual harassment fire, artillery going back and forth. Nothing major. Just enough to remind everyone the war was still on. I took the late shift. 2,000 to 0400. Someone had to monitor the nets, make sure communications stayed open. Jensen stayed with me. If it comes through tonight, you'll get it first, he said. I nodded. Adjusted the receiver. Made sure everything was tuned properly. We waited. 2,147 hours. The radio squawked. Division headquarters calling. All castle units, this is Kingdom Actual. Priority message follows. I grabbed the handset. Kingdom Actual, Castle 6. Send your traffic. Castle 6, be advised. Ceasefire agreement signed at Panmunjom at 1000 hours today. Effective 2200 hours, 27th July, 1953. All offensive operations will cease at that time. Defensive operations only until ceasefire takes effect. Detailed instructions to follow. Acknowledge. I stared at the radio, read my notes again, making sure I'd copied it correctly. Ceasefire, 2,200 hours, tomorrow night, 13 minutes from now. Number, wait, that couldn't be right. I checked my watch. 2,147 hours, 27th of July. Today, not tomorrow. Today, 13 minutes. Kingdom Actual, Castle 6, Roger, understood. Ceasefire effective 2000 hours, 27th July, acknowledged. I put down the handset, looked at Jensen. He'd gone pale. 13 minutes, I said. He nodded, grabbed the field phone, started calling the battalion commanders, passing the word. I transmitted to all the company nets. All castle units, this is Castle 6. Ceasefire effective 2200 hours tonight, 13 minutes. Cease all offensive operations. Maintain defensive posture only. Acknowledge. One by one, the companies acknowledged. Dog Company, Easy Company, Fox Company, all the way down the line. You could hear it in their voices. Relief, disbelief, fear that this was a mistake, that it would be canceled, that they'd wake up tomorrow and the war would still be on. But the clock kept ticking. 2,150, 2,155. 5 minutes. The radio traffic picked up. Units reporting contact. Chinese probes testing our lines. Did they know? Were they making one last push? Castle 6, this is Dog 2, taking fire. Heavy small arms. Request permission to return fire. Dog 2, Castle 6. Authorized. Suppress the fire. Defensive only. The war was still happening. Still killing. 4 minutes to go and men were still shooting. Castle 6, this is Fox 3. We have casualties. Need medevac. Casualties. 2 minutes before the ceasefire and we were still losing men. Fox 3, Roger. Medevac requested. Hold tight. I called in the medevac. The helicopter would take 20 minutes to arrive. By then, the war would be over. But the men bleeding out didn't know that. Didn't care. They needed help now. 1 minute. I watched the second hand on my watch. Ticking. Each second counted. Each second, someone might die. The radio was chaos. Multiple units reporting contact. Artillery still firing. Machine guns chattering in the distance. 30 seconds. Jensen was standing at the bunker entrance. looking out at the hills, at the flashes from the fighting, the tracers arcing through the night. 15 seconds. I held the handset, waiting, watching my watch. 10 seconds. The radio crackled. Castle 6, Dog 2. They're falling back. Contact broken. 5 seconds. The artillery fire slowed. One last salvo, then silence. 2,200 hours. The shooting stopped, not immediately, not everywhere. Some places took a few seconds longer. Some units didn't get the word exactly on time. Some men fired last shots, not knowing the war had ended. But gradually, across the entire Korean peninsula, the guns went quiet. For the first time in 3 years, the silence was deafening. We'd grown so accustomed to the noise, the constant background of artillery, small arms, explosions, that the quiet felt wrong, unnatural, like the world had stopped. Nobody celebrated, not immediately. We just stood there in the bunker, listening to the silence. Jensen lit a cigarette. His hands were shaking. "It's over," he said. Was it? The war had stopped, but was it over? The radio started again. Status reports coming in. Casualty counts from the last day, the last hour, the last minutes. Fox Company reported 2 dead, 3 wounded. Both KIA happened at 21:58, 2 minutes before the ceasefire. 2 minutes. 120 seconds. That's how close they'd come to surviving. Dog Company had 1 wounded. Took a round through the shoulder at 2,201. 1 minute after the ceasefire. The Chinese soldier who fired probably didn't know it was over, or didn't care. Those last-minute casualties felt worse somehow. Dying in a war that had already ended. Surviving 3 years of combat only to fall in the final seconds. The medevac helicopter came, picked up the wounded from Fox Company. The 2 dead would be processed tomorrow, bagged, tagged, sent home. Their families would get telegrams. Regret to inform you, killed in action. July 27th, 1953, the day the war ended. Would that make it better or worse? Dying on the last day? I didn't know. The night continued. We maintained watch. The ceasefire didn't mean we could relax. The Chinese were still there, still armed. The line was frozen, but tensions were high. What if someone violated the ceasefire? What if fighting broke out again? Would we restart the war? Go back to killing over the same hills? Nobody knew. I monitored the radio, listened to the traffic, units reporting their positions. No contact, no fire, just watching and waiting. Dawn came, July 28th, the first day of peace, if you could call it peace. I stepped outside the bunker, looked across the valley at the Chinese positions. I could see them, tiny figures moving around. Probably seeing us too. We'd been killing each other for years. Now we were just watching. Some of the guys started cheering, celebrating, breaking out bottles they'd been saving, finally letting themselves believe it was real. I couldn't join them, couldn't feel what they were feeling. Maybe I was too numb. Maybe I'd heard too many final messages, too many last casualty reports. Or maybe I knew this wasn't really the end. The war had stopped, but nothing was resolved. Korea was still divided. The Chinese were still there. The North Koreans still had their army. We'd just agreed to stop shooting, that's all. A ceasefire isn't victory. It's exhaustion. Everyone too tired to keep fighting. But the causes of the war, the reasons we were here, none of that changed. We'd fought for 3 years, lost 36,000 American dead, hundreds of thousands wounded, millions of Koreans dead. For what? A line on a map, roughly where it started. That's what the ceasefire meant. Not victory, not defeat. Just stopping. The days after were strange. We stayed in position. The Chinese stayed in theirs. Both sides watching each other, waiting to see if it would hold. Troops started rotating out. The guys who'd been there longest got to go home first. Some had been in Korea since 1950. 3 full years. They looked old, worn down, used up. They should have been happy, going home, surviving. But most of them just looked hollow. Lieutenant Morrison came through the command post on his way to the rear. His platoon was rotating out. "You made it," I said. "You get to marry that girl." He nodded, tried to smile, couldn't quite manage it. "Yeah, lucky me." He didn't sound lucky. He sounded lost. "The guys who didn't make it," he said. "Thompson, Rodriguez, Park. They're still out there, up on Hill 346, buried in that goddamn frozen ground." He wasn't talking about the 2 who died on the 26th. He was talking about all of them, the ones from winter, from spring, from all the fighting over hills that didn't matter. "Why them and not me?" he asked. "What makes me special?" I didn't have an answer. There wasn't an answer, just luck, random chance. The same reason I was alive and dozens of radio operators before me weren't. Morrison left, went home. Married his girl, I assume. Tried to build the life he'd planned. I hope he made it, hope he found some peace. My rotation came up in September, 2 months after the ceasefire. I'd been in Korea for 20 months, felt like 20 years. They processed us through Incheon. Medical checks, paperwork, new uniforms, getting ready to ship home. In the processing center, I saw a bulletin board, lists of units, casualty statistics, the final accounting. The 7th Infantry Division lost over 15,000 men. Dead and wounded, my division alone. For what? We ended up roughly where we started. The 38th parallel, the same line. All those men, all that suffering to maintain a status quo. But I couldn't think like that. Couldn't question it. The orders had been legitimate. The cause justified. Containing communism, defending South Korea. Important work, right? It had to be right. Because if it wasn't, if all that death was for nothing, I couldn't finish that thought. The ship home took 2 weeks. Time to decompress, to process, to try to figure out who I was now that the war was over. I'd spent 18 months listening to men die, relaying their final messages, coordinating their medevacs, sometimes too late. The radio had been my world, the static and the voices and the codes, the constant traffic, the endless stream of information and death. Now it was quiet. No radio, no messages, no one calling for help. The silence should have been peaceful. Relief. Instead, it felt like something was missing. Like I was incomplete without the radio chatter, without the constant crisis. The war had become normal. Peace was what felt strange. That's what scared me most. That I'd adapted to war so completely that I didn't know how to be anything else. I got home in October 1953, port of San Francisco, then a train to Pennsylvania. My parents met me at the station, tears and hugs and welcome home. I tried to feel something, tried to match their joy, but I felt hollow, empty, like I'd left something essential in Korea, some part of myself that couldn't come home. Nobody asked much about the war. It was already fading from the news. The forgotten war, they were calling it. 3 years of fighting, millions dead. And America was already moving on. Maybe that was better. Maybe forgetting was easier than remembering. I got a job back at the railroad. Telegraph operator again. Same work I'd done before the war, before Korea, before everything changed. It should have felt familiar, comfortable, coming full circle. Instead, it felt meaningless, typing railroad schedules and freight manifests. Nothing urgent, nothing life or death. I missed the radio, missed the importance of it, the weight of every message. I missed mattering. How sick is that? Missing a war because civilian life felt too ordinary, too pointless. But the railroad messages didn't matter. If I made a mistake, a shipment might be delayed. Inconvenient, but not fatal. In Korea, a mistake meant men died. That gave the work meaning, horrible meaning, but meaning nonetheless. I started listening to the news, following Korea, hoping something would change, that maybe the ceasefire would turn into something permanent, a real peace. It didn't. The DMZ became the most militarized border in the world. Both sides armed and watching, the ceasefire holding, but nothing resolved. We're still there. American troops still stationed along that line, still watching, still waiting. The war never ended. It just stopped. I tried to talk to my father about it once, tried to explain what it was like, receiving that ceasefire order, watching the clock count down, knowing men were still dying right up until the last second. He didn't understand. How could he? He'd never been there, never had to count down to peace while men were bleeding. At least it's over, he said. You're home safe. That's what matters. But it wasn't over, not for me. I still heard the radio traffic in my head, still heard the voices calling for help, still checked my watch, counting seconds, wondering if someone was dying. The messages never stopped, not really. They just moved inside my head. I got married in '55, good woman, patient, didn't ask too many questions about Korea, raised a family, 2 kids, built a life. On the outside, I was fine, normal, a veteran who'd come home and adjusted. On the inside, I was still in that bunker, still monitoring the radio, still waiting for the next casualty report, still counting down to 2,200 hours, watching the seconds tick away, wondering who would die in the final moments. The ceasefire order was supposed to mean the end, the moment we were saved, the moment we could stop. But I never stopped. The war just moved inside, and I've been listening to it ever since. That's what they don't tell you about ceasefire orders. They stop the shooting, but they don't stop the war, not where it really matters. We never came back.